So hi everyone, and welcome to our second session in our three-part Lux University Fall Training Series. My name is Brooke Ipis, and I'm part of the sales and marketing teams here at Luxent, and I'm excited to kick things off with you today as we launch this training opportunity. So we are super excited to be offering these Lux University training sessions. I'm also excited to announce or to introduce, excuse me, Randy Hart, our Director of Managed Services team, who is joining us on today's session. Randy has over 15 years of NetSuite experience and has firsthand experience as a former NetSuite user. So Randy brings a wealth of practical insight that will definitely make today's training informative and actionable. Right, so let's kick things off first by walking through today's agenda so you guys will know what we're going to be covering. So I'll give you a little preview of our fall series, which you guys already know about. We're going to go through why dashboards matter, and then Randy's going to also take us into a demo of the dashboards. And then we'll go over some key takeaways and considerations that will be beneficial to your organization and open it up for questions and answers. All right, in today's session, we're going to be covering all things NetSuite dashboards from the many different NetSuite roles, so kind of role-based dashboards. Following this session, we will be hosting a session on the basics of NetSuite inventory, and then we'll be hosting a follow-up session, which is not listed here, on advanced inventory, and we'll be releasing some more information about that in the coming week or so here. So those sessions are really to help you kind of squash any inventory issues that you're having out there, provide a little bit of training, and then hopefully, open that up for any sort of questions that you guys might have regarding inventory and kind of allowing our team to help you address those questions. I wanted to touch a little bit on the goal of Lux University. It's a training program that we built to kind of make learning NetSuite a little bit simpler, more accessible, and a lot more practical for everyday use. So Lux University is all about helping your team feel confident and empowered in the NetSuite system. You could be a brand new user, you're just trying to learn a little bit more about different pieces of NetSuite. This is supposed to help kind of take your skills to the next level. So these sessions are designed around real use cases. So, based off of some of our managed services program, our Lux services program cases and pieces that people have a lot of questions around. So we're trying to bring to you guys real use cases, tips, and workflows that might make your day in NetSuite a little bit easier. We also want this program to grow with you. So if there's a topic that you would like to see covered in a future training, feel free to drop it in the chat or in the survey that we will be posting at the end of the webinar here. And we'd love to hear from you. With that, I am going to pass it over to Randy.
All right. Brooke, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So as Brooke mentioned, my name is Randall Hart. I am one of the directors here, the managed services team. We're going to start today with why dashboards matter. So a lot of times post-implementation or a couple years down the road of NetSuite, we see people very much ignoring their homepage. It's just sort of there. It was set up before. It's not very useful. We go through links to get everything we need. But we're going to focus on dashboards today because they do matter. Some of the reasons they matter is one, it's the first thing that someone sees when they log in. So when someone is going to start their day and logs into their ERP system, you don't want them to just ignore their front page. You want that front page to help drive where they go, what they do on a day-to-day basis. Good dashboards can simplify business processes and free up employee time. So instead of having to go from here to here to here to here, you look at your dashboard, you see your actionable work for the day, you click on it, and you're off to the races. And they also shorten time between activities. So when you have good data in front of you, people can be more productive because they pull it up, they look at the data, they start to make their decisions, they start to take their activities instead of having to dump everything out, compare multiple pieces, right? When you put things in front of someone, it makes it much easier to engage with it quickly, which keeps your employees and yourself, focused on what needs to be done and not just on finding data and statistics. So with that, we're going to just dive right into the demo. What I'm going to walk through today on the demo, Brooke, if you could go to the next slide. So we're going to start, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through some role-based examples. I'm going to talk through basically 4 different styles of dashboard. I mean, technically 5. We're going to start an administrator for navigation best practices. But from there, we're going to go through and basically follow a transaction process through the system. Sales with transactions coming in, managing customers, working with leads. What do they need to see? What things make that data actionable? Then operations and production, then warehouse, right? Building product, shipping product, and then the CFO executive dashboard. I know we kind of are jumping a little bit. We're sort of skipping accounting, billing, but we're going to cover some of those things on the CFO and executive dashboard, right? So this is very much a cycle of business, and we're going to look at dashboards for each of them. As we go, we're going to talk about the different components of the dashboards, what best practices are for configuring them, some little knowledge tidbits that you may or may not know, but I find are very helpful, as well as what some of the key best practices are when we're configuring these things for users and when we're setting them up for ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. All right, Brooke, can you see my screen?
Yes, we are all set.
Perfect. So we're going to start off today in the administrator role. Some of you may have access to an administrator role, some of you may not. The reason we're going to start off here is to discuss some of the navigation pieces and some of the terminology so that you can understand your dashboards a little bit better. Then we're going to dive into the role-based ones to look at data configuration, layout best practices, and pieces of that nature. So if we start and we look at this dashboard, there's a couple of things. Most of you will be NetSuite users, so I'm not going to spend very long talking about every piece on the dashboard, right? But let's refresh a couple of the big basics. So you've got your global search, you've got your recent records. This is something that, you know, is always on everything in NetSuite, and it makes life really easy to get back to things you're previously working on. We've got our shortcuts menu here. And then again, our tabs up at the top, which drive our navigation through the system. Now, one of the pieces that we'll be talking about and I'll be demonstrating during sales is something that a lot of people tend to miss, which is that each and every one of these tabs up at the top is a link to its own dashboard page. So we talk about dashboard pages. Really what we're talking about is these landing pages with the data on them and the navigation portlets on them to sort of drive you through your day. A lot of places I've worked with tend to have the home dashboard set up, and that's really the only dashboard that most folks use. So we're going to be talking a little bit today about leveraging the additional tabs and pages to build quicker ways to data that's not just stored on your front home page, because there are limits. You know, for those of you who've played around with it an awful lot, you may have run into limits. We can only have 10 save searches, a certain number of reports, etc. So you can get around that by leveraging different tabs. A couple of other pieces navigation-wise. Everything on your dashboard, these little boxes we can click and drag around, those are called portlets. The portlets are made up of many different pieces. The way that we can choose what portlets go where is this personalized drop down here in the top right. And when you click on it, it's going to give you standard content, anything from your suite apps, and then show you what you've currently got on your dashboard. The currently used is actually a lot more helpful than a lot of people think when you're designing it, because it sort of tells you, hey, there's a portlet here. Maybe you're using it, maybe you're not. How many of them do you have? Oh, I can't find my shortcuts. Is my shortcuts portlet actually on here? Currently used? Nope, it's not. Most folks live in the standard content section. This is where you pick and pull what you want to see. These do change by roles. So when you're looking at configuring your dashboard and what you want to bring in where, there are some limitations if you're doing it as an administrator versus you're doing it as a sales rep or production rep. You know, not everyone is going to have access to bank reconciliation data. Not everyone's going to have access to, you know, the RSS feeds, right? But for the most part, this is fairly static between roles. Now, very quickly, let's talk about other options you have to customize the page. Um, this right here is actually very important, and I see a lot of people, who don't know so much about this, but you can change like you would change if you're going into your KPIs and you're saying, oh, I want this to be against last month or last year, right, or within this time frame. You can actually change the date settings of every portlet all at once by leveraging this viewing portlet date settings here. You can actually change it so that, hey, use each portlet date individually, or set every portlet as a comparative, set every portlet as a specific day, as a specific month, etc. So it ends up being very helpful if you want to do a large data comparison, like large data viewing, to move things back and forth in terms of historical snapshots. You can access that really easily just by leveraging this viewing up here. And the last thing we're going to talk about is the layout. This is fairly static in NetSuite. There's really only 4 choices here. You've got your bar on the left, bar on the right, your 3 bars. So I tend to see this one a lot, and almost every example we'll look through today is set up this way, where we've got sort of 2 smaller sidebars and then our big portlets in the middle. But you can change this layout, sort of make it what you want. There are some that I find less helpful than others. The one I'm showing you right now, the put everything on one page, I find sort of tends to blur things. So this is kind of a personal choice, but I do like the 3 bar option the best myself. Okay, so that's navigation. So let's dive now into a sales role, and we're just going to start with a generic sales rep role. So as you can see, I changed roles. What's on my dashboard changed. And I wanted to show you guys something very interesting. So for those of you who've been to watch the Suite World presentations or have been following with NetSuite, NetSuite is going to be moving to the Redwood theme for a lot of the new AI features and functionality. So I wanted to have some of these roles in Redwood, but also show you that while still logged in as the same user, you can have roles that are not logged into Redwood. So my sales role is a classic role, which means that we have all of the options. Everything looks the same as it would be in the classic role. And then some of the other roles, we'll look at today are in Redwood. This is something that I'm recommending to some clients to start getting used to the Redwood theme, is take a role that you spend some time in but may not affect your day-to-day business, switch the appearance to Redwood in the home set preferences option, just so that you can sort of start getting used to NetSuite's new UI format. And like I said, we'll be going back and forth today so you guys can see how it looks different in the different roles. So as we look at the sales role, this is where we start seeing some of the best practices in terms of dashboard design be leveraged. What dashboards should do is provide insights to key data, put pieces that allow for quick, easy, actionable intelligence to occur, and make things relevant for the role or the user. What I mean by some of those is, if you look here, we see the reminders. Now, there are potentially hundreds of reminders you can set up in NetSuite. So making this relevant to the role and actionable is very important to making the reminders portlet and really anything we're doing activity-wise in NetSuite important. So leads, prospects, customers without activity, a task to complete, opportunities to close. So these are all things a sales rep would need to be doing every day to drive business forward and to take action on behalf of the organization. Hey, I have 420 leads and prospects that no one's touched within the last month. Okay, cool. So that's my prospecting list. I can go into them. I can look and see, who's been contacted, who hasn't, and I can decide my day by that, by making one click, seeing this list, and knowing who to talk to. I have a task to complete. So this means that I've leveraged NetSuite CRM functionality to assign myself a task to go and do. I have opportunities to close. So this is active business I'm soliciting. I'm trying to work. I'm getting quotes out, right? This is information that I want to see very quickly so that I can work on my pipeline. So putting all of that on the reminders on the front left side is really a good way to drive business activity for the specific role. And I'll show you guys the differences in the different roles of different kinds of actionable reporting or reminders there for you to leverage. Then we've got our tiles over here. So tiles are another great way. This is a, NetSuite sort of app that gives you the opportunity to go directly into a specific transaction or a specific opportunity, right? Something that you want, something that you would want your team to be able to go and click on and go right to a transaction. Again, simplifying the amount of time it takes to get from one step to another. Then if we look here over in the shortcuts, you can see I've put together 2 shortcuts for this role. Salespeople are always striving to hit quota, and they're always working with specific customers. So all of this is really good for chasing new business and who do I need to talk to. But let's say that I work with a lot of existing business. So I have a specific set of accounts, people I need to follow up with, things of that nature. I can put a shortcut right here. So Abbott Inc. If I do a lot with them, I need to track their invoices. I need to make sure they're happy because they're a huge book of business. I can put that shortcut here, and then I'm very well poised to, with one click from my dashboard, get to the record to look up anything I need to look up, right, to figure out if they have transaction issues or if they've called me. So again, simplifying the amount of time it takes to access customers, to access data. Now, let's look at a couple other things. So KPIs are going to factor very heavily on dashboards. These are very customizable and allow you to put in save searches, both custom and standard, to compare data, in a given time frame. So for this, my new opportunities this month, right? But show me my receivables, show me my quota, show me sales this month versus last month for my team, right? Giving me information at a glance so that I don't have to go dig it. I don't have to go ask someone for the information. I can see it very quickly and move on with my day. Then we have our, what NetSuite calls, I'm about to have a moment here. KPI scorecards. So these are a little different. KPI scorecards are something that NetSuite's put together that are formula-based, that allow for a little bit more of a financial sort of picture. I will show you a deeper example of this when we get into the CFO and executive dashboard. That's where we tend to see KPI. That's where we tend to see KPI scorecards used more frequently. And then you've got your navigation shortcut group, right? This is something that NetSuite has pre-built for different kinds of roles. Just again, quicker ways to get to different record types. And then I'm going to show you guys here a custom save search. So when we are looking at what makes sense for certain roles in the organization, when we're building things for them, we're leveraging our administrators, we're leveraging, NetSuite Safe Searches and reports. We want to come up with things for roles that make sense to them, that can help with processes that used to take a long period of time. So this report is one that we do or have done for several clients, this available to sell. And basically what this does is, hey, if I need to find an item to see how many of them are available, instead of having to pick up the phone or send a Teams or Slack message to someone internally, hey, what's my quantity on here? We have a thing on the dashboard that allows you to search by item name, by a UPC code, by item type, so that you can very quickly and easily answer questions to clients who call in or structure what you want to sell on another transaction directly from your dashboard. So this is, again, a really good example of, hey, what can I do custom that will allow my team to have action taken and shorten the time that they're doing certain things internally. So this is a very good example of a custom search portlet. And then some of the other things you see on here, right, are visualizations that allow us to basically just have data very quickly. For sales, right, top 5 customers by pipeline this month, what's my weekly sales order trend, what are my top 5 items sold this quarter. This is all good data because it suggests to me as a salesperson, this is action I can take, right? Hey, this item is selling really good. Let me talk to the marketing team. Maybe we can build a campaign to push this in front of other people. Are there other clients that I have not, talked about PR 100A with? Let me drill into this item. How many customers are ordering this? Is this being driven by one customer or many? But again, it's that data at your fingertips that allows your people to do less manual work and more intellectual work, which is what we need people doing these days with advanced systems and automation, is thinking, doing things that you can't just, uh, have the system do for you, right? That's why we want people using dashboards and taking this kind of action. All right. So in our process flow, we've gone through sales. So the sales team takes action, they get an order, right? Let's go look at our operator role. So the production operator, production manager role. So as you can see, right, a couple of different changes. One, we're back in Redwood. So this is what the new NetSuite UI is going to look like. Fairly similar, a little different. But let's look at the reminders. Because again, one of the best practices is to make things matter by role, by user. So as the production manager, I have a very different set of reminders for work I have to do than a sales individual does. So you see we have lots nearing expiration. So if we need to fulfill these lots first, right, I can look and see what those are. We have items that we need to order as part of our manufacturing process. We've got 37 work orders to build, 2 to close, 194 past due. So these are all actions that a planning manager, a production manager, a manufacturing operator would need to take in order for the organization to continue doing business, right? Building things, fulfilling things, all of that is here on this dashboard. And again, you see, we have a KPI scorecard and it's different. So instead of being sales numbers, this is a snapshot of within the last couple months and the last year of how many work orders have we built? How many have we partially built, right? How many have been released or are planned? So gives us information so that we can structure our manufacturing operations by looking at this data instead of having to go do save searches to count numbers of work orders or, how many are planned. This gives us the information to go to our manufacturing workbenches and handle all of our scheduling. The KPIs, again, different actionable data. So what's been my value this month of work orders completed? Hey, my value is much higher. That's great. People are going to want to know that. We're fulfilling more. The value of the released is around 30K. What's the total value in my inventory? How many have been fulfilled, right? Are we getting a lot of returns? So again, information that's relevant and actionable to the specific user. Then we have some other safe searches, work orders past due. So this is really important, obviously, for manufacturing operators. Hey, we've got things that are past due. How long have they been past due? What's the description on it? Is there a related item? So that you can come right from your dashboard as a production manager and look in, figure out, these are over 10 days old. I need to look at these work orders and find out what's going on because we can't be that far behind or it's going to push a bunch of sales. So I need to figure out what's going on, right? Dig into the items. So just shortens the amount of time it takes to get to underlying data. And then also work orders released so we can see what work orders have been released, what we need to plan for, when it's started, when it's completed, right? Just more information that's relevant to this role. Now, I talked about at the beginning that we're going to look at, okay, how are other ways we can use the tabs? So in an operations role, we might have manufacturing, we might have shipping, receiving. So let's look at the difference in these different dashboard tabs. So we go to activities, and activities in NetSuite is sort of similar to an Outlook calendar, right? You can create tasks, you can log phone calls, and you can view things for yourself on this activities tab. And this is pretty standard across every role. Then if we were to say coming into the shipping, so as the production manager, I need more information on shipping and receiving in inventory than I might need as generally just a regular production operator as opposed to a manager. So if we look here, you see I have differences than were on my home dashboard. I have my shipping links, I have shipping KPIs, I have open orders that are pending fulfillment, and some data on my weekly fulfillment trends. So again, same role, different tab, different information, more in depth as we go down this list, right? Receiving, we have vendor performance, KPIs for inventory and receipts, POs to receive. So very useful in terms of breaking out data and information in multiple places within the same role. So you have different areas where you house the actionable information for each piece of the process for that role, making things much simpler, much quicker than everyone having to come up here, figure out where I'm going. Okay, I need a report on this. So is it under inventory or is it under reports? You know what? I'm just going to click on my inventory tab and we'll put the inventory trend here. Cool. Now I see this report where I need. And now let's go back to my dashboard to figure out what my next action for the day is. Okay. So let's go to warehouse. And we're going to spend just a little bit of time in the warehouse. The production operator, production manager role does have some of this information in it, so we won't spend too long here before we get to the executive role. But I just did want to show how you can sort of focus it differently. So even though some of the permissions and tasks might be the same, again, the warehouse manager has some different things in here. We didn't see transfer orders as the purchasing and production manager. We didn't see cycle counts. We didn't see assemblies to order, right? We didn't see packs and ships. So even though a lot of the permissions still overlap, you can customize the role in the dashboard to really sort of get specific on different permissions different roles need and different activities and tasks that they have to complete. And again, as we look through, the KPIs are different, and then our KPI meters, right? So we can set targets for number of fulfillments, how many have we hit versus what we expected to, right? We still can see top 5 quantity, items by quantity sold. This could help us in our warehouse organization, right? If we look at this trend over, this month or 3 months, it can help us determine, hey, maybe we need this item in a easier to pick location because we're selling a lot of it. So you can even see that the same data in different places can drive different activity and different logic internally for your business. And then again, our trend graphs, trend reports, and our KPI scorecard of warehouse operations. But again, I'm going to circle it back to all of this data is helpful and useful in terms of what do we do next? How do we run our business next? Where does this person need to go next? So a dashboard is not useful unless it gives you stuff that you actually need to do what you want to do day to day. All right, and we're going to jump last into the CFO and executive dashboard. Now you're going to see some differences on here. The differences here are that there is a lot more high-level company financial and approval level information. So this role is really a not in the weeds role. This is a role that we're putting together. They want to see overall company information. They want to see accounting and reconciliation. CFOs don't do a lot of transactions themselves, but they do a lot of approvals, right? They look at a lot of information in order to determine what business action, what tone to set for the organization. So as you see here, the KPI list is much longer, right? And it has a lot more dollar values than anything else. So We haven't seen expenses yet. We saw sales and revenue on the sales rep role. We saw receivables on the warehouse role. We saw inventory on the production role. But this is the executive view. This is where we put it all together, right? What's our average days to receive? All right, last time it was 6. It's down to about 4 this month. Okay, that's better, right? How long does it take to pay? That's been fairly consistent month over month. What's the value of my work orders? So financial information that executives can use to make the determination to drive your company forward, again, here at your fingertips. And we're going to spend a little bit more time now in some of the more detailed reports. So I mentioned earlier that the KPI scorecards, we're going to spend a little bit more time with in the CFO role. So if we look at the KPI scorecard in the CFO role, you see the board metrics. So whereas for other roles, this was simpler formulas, hey, show me days to deliver, show me number of fulfillments outstanding, right? At the accounting and executive levels, this is where we start to see a lot more ratios and financial calculations come into play on the dashboard, right? We have our debt to asset, current financial ratio, debt to equity, equity ratio. These are all here in this board metrics. We can change this if we go to setup, and I can say that I want to see financial ratios only. And I'm going to save that, and it's going to change this, right? It's going to go from board metrics just to showing me my financial ratios. And these are pretty standard financial ratios, but you can customize these and sort of build your own. It's a little complex because you have to know the formula and be willing to come in and type it up, but it is easily customizable. So I can then come in and say, okay, show me financials overview as opposed to financial ratios. And you see here, again, now I have EBITDA, bank balance, gross profit. So these are very, very, very helpful for detailed summaries of things that you would normally have to run financial reports, maybe put things in a spreadsheet, right? Put your own analysis in there. NetSuite scorecards are something that I don't see leveraged as much as they should be with how much flexibility and data that they give us to play with. So yeah, if we look down, there's also a couple of other safe searches and reports that we have at the executive or accounting level. You know, weekly cash projection is always a very big one that people want to understand. What's my current cash position? How are things flowing in and out? Am I going to have enough in the bank account to pay the bills? And then the bank rec summary. So each month, show me the bank rec summary, and then quick links to my reconcile account statement, my reconciliation summary report, right, built in here in this report. But again, it's questions that CFOs, CEOs have every day, and we can get this data right at our fingertips in the first place we look at NetSuite. And then even to, like you saw, change this to help with day-to-day, it's very quick, right? It's very quick to go back and forth between them. And then as always, we have our different snapshots, different reports, you know, weekly sales trends, revenue by brand, right? We can change these around, but it's very helpful to know what data is useful to your companies and be able to access it and place it where your executives, your CFOs, your head senior vice presidents can all sort of see this in one place. Okay. So I know I blitzed through this pretty quickly. We'll circle back with a Q&A session here in a little bit. But for now, Brooke, let's go back to the PowerPoint and talk about some of our key takeaways.
Great. Thanks, Randy. Take it away.
All right. So some of the things that I want everyone to just sort of take away from this session. So things that could help your organization, that if you're reviewing your dashboards, you should keep these in mind. One, they should drive action. So when you're reviewing something on your dashboard, if you're looking at it on your dashboard and you go, okay, this is nice, but there's nothing I can do with, like, this is sort of useless to have as a reminder. Well, then is it really helpful to even be taking up space on your dashboard? If you're looking at something, it should be giving you the ability to take action from it. So, as we saw, this is most heavily focused in reminders. We want to standardize reports across the different dashboards so that people are seeing some of the same information. So what we don't really want to do is customize the safe search on, let's say, sales dollars for one person that excludes 3 departments and for another person that excludes 2 different departments. The reason being is that if they're trying to communicate data back and forth, their numbers are different. They may not know why. So what you want to do is standardize your reports and searches and then allow for, as you saw in the dashboards that I showed, there are fields, there are places that we can search, there are the ability to change dates. Leave that to the individual things so that the reports all show the same information, but each user can filter it down as necessary while accessing all of the same information so that when people talk to each other, there's not a lot of confusion because numbers are different. Focused reminders, focused shortcuts, right? Having access, on the top right in the shortcuts pane to things that matter for the individual, access to the quotas, access to direct to customer records, for production, access directly to work order lists, making sure that the things on there are clear and concise so that, again, it circles back to our first point of driving action. And then last but not least, role-based customization. Make sure that the dashboards are set up for the role as opposed to having dashboards set up for for multiple roles or trying to stack 10 or 15 different roles worth of permissions into a single dashboard, right? Use the roles, use different roles, use the different tabs to help spread out the focused information. So those are our key takeaways. Next, we're going to talk about some considerations. So these are things that I've run into over, almost 20 years of being in NetSuite. These are sort of, I don't want to call them like pitfalls, but these are things that I've seen that I've worked with clients on, that can cause some hiccups as we make changes to dashboards. So when we're changing dashboards, especially if we've been on the system for a while, clear communication across the organization of, hey, we're going to be making changes to your dashboards. We're taking this away, we're adding this, we're standardizing that, right? Make sure it's communicated clearly. Some of the things that are very painful is if we've had a lot of people all in the same role, but all doing different things, and we just decide, hey, we're going to change this role's dashboard. We're going to publish out this new dashboard. It's going to have this data on it, but we don't have different roles set up for different people. We could potentially erase what somebody's been using for 4 or 5 years. So they need to know about that beforehand rather than just when they come in, because they need time to adjust, right? Potentially provide feedback, maybe get a new role. We want dashboards to be helpful and effective, not to cause chaos. Upholding organizational data policies. So with dashboards, right, sometimes people will say, well, I need to see this report on my dashboard. Oh, okay, there's one use case for that, but we're going to give this role all these permissions that they can see this report. Is that really with my organizational's data policy? Because by doing that, we could potentially give them access to things they shouldn't see, right? So always ask, let's make sure we ask questions. Hey, okay, normally you wouldn't get to see that. Why do you need to see that? Do we have approval to do that? Does this make sense to everyone involved that we're changing that permission for this role? Does anyone else have this role who we're now giving permissions to? That leads us into the third point, which is roles and permissions matter. So having better defined roles leads to better defined dashboards. If we give everyone a custom role with custom permissions and build everything from the ground up custom for 15 users, well, we're not going to have as much success with consistent dashboarding, right? Each person's is going to be so wildly different from the others that it's going to be hard, as NetSuite administrators, as organizational leaders and users, to sort of understand what's going on there and what access or actions are being given or required from that page. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is training. I will harp on this forever, which is the more users get to talk to people who have experience, the more users are walked through what changes, what options, what abilities they have to move things around, to add things, to get custom safe searches, the more that things are explained to them about you can get this data and put it here on your dashboard. All you need to do is click this box and then you can access it on your dashboard. The better our internal organization's actions are going to be. So this is one of the things that I stress and I strive to do all the time, which is enable users and train users. All right. And I think that's the end
Okay.
of my prepared remarks.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Randy. I thought that was a great presentation, and I hope he covered a lot of what people may have questions about. So we are going to open it up to questions right now. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A panel and we will start to address them. Okay, so we've got one coming through here. Can users view reports or data from other roles? So let's see. For example, allowing purchasing to see accounting reports or sales to see fulfillment data, etc.
Yeah, I kind of so I touched a little bit on that in the data permissions section. This is a fun one because the answer is yes and no. Um, if you do not have access to the underlying data, right, then you cannot see the search or the report. If you're sort of given view permissions to the lists that underlie that search or that report, yes, you can put it on a dashboard, but it does have to be sort of role driven. You can also leverage some global permissions or some search permissions to make specific reports available to roles that they may not be available for, like on a general sense. But that's something that you should probably discuss either with your admin team or us here at Luxent, the consulting team, to figure out like, okay, well, if they need access to that, let's say purchasing needs better accounting reporting for something, maybe receivables or something like that that's not there. You really kind of want to ask why first, but yes, there are ways to do it.
Okay. Another question we have here is, if I have multiple roles, are there any best practices to know which role I'm in?
Yeah. Um, this is a good one. I like this one. So one of the things that I used to teach during implementation as kind of like this is fun, is in the original NetSuite UI, not necessarily Redwood, but in the original NetSuite UI, you can change your color schemes. And one of the best practices that's been in place since, I started using NetSuite in 2008 is to have different colors for different roles. So, for example, you can set a green background for when you're in sales, your sales role. You can set a blue background for when you're in an administrator role. You can set red for purchasing, things like that. There really isn't much more other than the color coordination and the tabs layout up top. Um, One of the things I will say about the tabs layout that multiple roles I tend to see people do is if you've got like 5 or 10 roles and it gets confusing switching between the tabs, in your home set preferences, there's a box called classic ribbon or classic layout, and that'll sort of set everything up top to be a standardized version like you'd see as an administrator. But that that doesn't exactly help quite as much with the how do I differentiate. So the best way, the best practice I've seen to do that is by leveraging color schemes. But again, when everyone moves to new Redwood with so that people can access AI, I'm not sure if they're gonna roll out that color change option. So we'll kind of have to wait and see on that. But at the moment, it's to leverage different colors for your different roles so that oh, I logged in, it's red, I'm in my purchasing role without having to go to the top right and look.
Great, thank you. All right, so finally, if I don't like how search report or workbook or something of the like displays on my dashboard, can I customize how it looks or functions?
Oh, good question. So there are ways to do it. Workbooks are a little harder to do. Workbooks sort of show up as they are. So whatever kind of, if you're using like, let's say a pivot table, the pivot table is just going to look like a pivot table in a portlet, right? What I have seen done a lot is uh, you can write custom suitelets that go on the dashboard. So there's a concept of like scripting searches and scripting reports, which is what you had to do to get multi-joins a couple years ago, right? Where you basically can put 3 or 4 safe searches or 2 or 3 reports in a script and have it then give you your results. And because you're using scripting to display it, like you can sort of make it look really pretty or make it look the way you want it to for data access in that scripted portlet. This is something our dev team does an awful lot of. So if that's something you kind of want to do, uh, reach out to us and we can set up some time with dev to give you sort of the 411, talk about what the options are, and how you can go about that. But the short answer is yes, you can do scripted suitelets and scripted reports that allow you to put pretty fancy stuff on your dashboard. I mean, that's basically what dashboard tiles are. If you've seen the NetSuite standard, there is that's a suite app / custom portlet.
Great, thanks, Randy. All right, just to kind of close us out here, just before we close out, we would love your feedback. So please take a minute to fill out the survey. I just dropped it into the chat there so you guys can fill it out. And for all those that do fill out the survey, you'll be entered for a chance to win a $50 gift card. So pretty exciting. We'll announce the winner likely tomorrow. And as a reminder, Luxent is here to help your team succeed. So if you have any follow-up questions or you want to dive deeper on how your team can get more from NetSuite, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to connect and brainstorm or even walk you through a specific use case. Maybe there was something that you saw today. It was like, wow, I would love to have my dashboard customized that way. We are happy to set up some one-on-one time with you and your team. So thank you again for joining us. We hope that you'll keep learning with us through Lux University. Have a great day, everyone.